Criminals in hindsight. A complete betrayal. Inspiration. Dylan Oakley, recent appearance on South Australia in Focus with Mark. In reference to Romans 13, Dylan eloquently phrases the following: Government are servants. They're there to oppose wickedness and uphold righteousness, and bear the sword when necessary to do that. So if the converse is true, if they are upholding wickedness and opposing righteousness, somebody has got to rebuke them and bring them back to being servants. That somebody to rebuke them could be you, or it could be someone you know. As Mark puts it, we need to not censor ourselves and instead become bold and courageous. Proverbs 28:1. The righteous are bold. Preface. Qualify the information you are consuming. Who stands to benefit? And why are you being told what you are being told? Self-educated people cannot be fooled by institutionalized propaganda. Perhaps the greatest mistake made in history was allowing government to educate our children. Garbage for your body, garbage for your mind. To be informed, the era of the television. It is easier to fool people than to convince them they've been fooled. A Twitter post here reads, the key problem here being that 99% of the country assumes that if they were under attack, their TV would tell them, so they don't believe they are getting invaded even as they see it happen with their own eyes, because their TV is not telling them so. Painting a picture. Continue to challenge core assumptions and new, quote, norms. We are born, vaccinated, put into daycare. Our parents go away and work. We are put in school. We finish school, go to university, get a job, take out a loan to buy a house. We continue to work. We have children. We vaccinate them, put them into daycare. We go away to work. We put our children into school. They then go to university. They get a job, take out a loan to buy a house. We put our parents into aged care. We continue to work. We retire. Our children have children. They vaccinate their children. They put their children into daycare and school while they go away to work. And we are put into aged care. Modern day core assumptions. Homosexuals are said to be, quote, the same as heterosexuals. Challenge this. Transgenders also, quote, the same as biological women. If you have a mother and father, a brother and sister, you know this to be untrue. Migrants from Africa, the Middle East, India, all said to be Australian, just like us, descendants of those who arrived some 200 years ago and built this great nation. We are told this country is for foreigners to enjoy. Challenge this. Globalists from the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, NATO, G20, and the World Trade Organization. We are told these people are just the same as our local parliament candidates. Challenge this. Paradigm shifts. News, TV or otherwise, being free for the consumer. If the information included was going to benefit the consumer in any real way, quote, capitalism would most certainly make them pay for it. Think of financial advice, legal advice, consultants for business, etc. All charge the client for the service. What service is the mainstream news providing? Moreover, what influence are they having with the supposed information you are consuming? Who are they really serving? Quote, life-saving drugs, if there is such a thing, cost money. COVID vaccines were free for the supposed consumer or case study, however you wish to view yourself. Take them at their word, at your own risk. If a crime has been committed and covered up, and you, whether directly affected or not, are justifiably outraged or at the very least concerned, would you allow the person or accomplice suspected or found of committing the crime to freely and unashamedly speak to the legitimacy of your concern, the validity of your outrage, the heart of your character, lecturing you on what you should and shouldn't be thinking. Those that orchestrated this are backstabbing cowards. Do not be like them. Do not do the same to your fellow countrymen as was done to you. You must speak truth to power without fear, risking your beloved self-preservation. Enter Opposition Leader Peter Dutton. Laura Jays says, quote, "We saw the terror threat raised to probable yesterday, but there are multiple fronts now. One of those fronts that I found most interesting has come out of COVID. There's the conspiracy theorists, the anti-vaxxers, who are finding support in dark corners of the internet. What does this say to you about, and I know we can all be perfect in hindsight, COVID was unprecedented, but what does it say to you about government overreach and government essentially controlling people's lives and the effects that that can have?" End quote. Peter Dutton responds, quote, "There's no doubt there is a long tail and a huge mental impact on people. The talk of massive increases in relation to mental health needs, and many families tie that back to the very significant heavy hand of Daniel Andrews with the lockdowns in Victoria. None of that, though, should give rise to the sort of conduct that you're referring to. I would say to anybody in our community, whether it's within your friendship group, your family group, the work group, where you see somebody's behavior changing, regardless of their motivation, or if they've changed radically their thoughts about society and government, you need to report that information to ASIO or to the Australian Federal Police as a matter of urgency." End quote. Now, Peter, I would wonder what causes change in behaviour. An article here says, "These changes in personality and behaviour can be caused by physical or mental health problems." Well, there you go. Former Labor Party leader Bill Shorten, if I may play this short clip for you.
There is a network of hard-right man-baby Nazis, just people who just want to cause trouble, these man-babies. They want to complain about the vaccination, and they deserve to get the full force of everything that's coming their way.
Man-baby Nazis. He is referring to you and I, or others you may know. What a disservice to someone who has themselves or a close relative or friend been affected by the COVID vaccine. The mandates with the threat of termination of employment, therefore loss of income, and the subsequent lockdowns. Is this the sound of a leader or a globalist puppet? If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck. Do those scamming the NDIS deserve the full force of everything that's coming their way, Bill Shorten? Foreigners as recipients on Australia's, not India's or any other country's, Australia's welfare system. Those able to work but game the scheme to live obligation-free at the expense of those who do work. Providers funding their own lavish lifestyles, stealing from the pockets of Australian families. African street gangs in Melbourne and Adelaide. Middle Easterners in Western Sydney. Where is the full force, Bill? But we shall excuse them because they have hindsight, correct? No. Politicians are masters of subversion and the need for us to, quote, blame the other guy. In this case, the camp of the pro-vax mandate, pro-lockdowns, pro-masks, pro-social distancing, the ones in support of not being able to visit elderly family members as they pass on. It is these people who are told, which they obey, to blame the, quote, anti-vaxxers for the problems throughout COVID, if their cognitive dissonance would even allow them to acknowledge there were problems. These issues being failings of or planned execution from the government. Just as pro-immigration people are told to blame, quote, far-right, racist, white supremacist, Nazi nationalists for the issues, economic and social being crime, issues that are blatantly obvious. These issues being failings of or planned execution from the government. Issues circumnavigated and foisted upon scapegoats like the Nationals. A tweet here from Liz Wheeler. Your grandma died alone in the hospital. Your husband was fired over a mandate. Your teenage son has heart problems. You lost your business. You weren't allowed to go to church. Your 2-year-old was forced to wear a mask. But you want to forget the whole thing? No, I will never forget. Food for thought. I've got a picture here. You know the saddest thing about betrayal? It never comes from your enemy. And a quote, a Turkish proverb. The forest was shrinking, but the trees kept voting for the axe was clever and convinced the trees that because his handle was made of wood, he was one of them. Redefining our adversaries. The apparatus, the structure. The adversary for the blue-collar worker is not the white-collar worker. The adversary for the Labour voter is not the Liberal voter. For the young is not the old. For man, not woman. We must instead look at the power apparatus. The well-known globalist organisations, these are obvious. The World Health Organization, WEF, UN, NATO, G20, WTO. It is feminism, the LGBT push, critical race theory, BLM, communism, hedonism, vice, all tools used by the real group in power to degrade and divide. They use foot soldiers to do their work. If you waste your efforts trying to denounce the foot soldiers, you are merely hacking at the tail of the serpent with a blunt object. We need to sharpen the axe and cut off the head. This will eventuate from ground level or grassroots support to rebel against the hostile occupying power. Thomas Sewell from the NSN puts it well in an episode uploaded by Joel Davis to Rumble titled Blood and Honour Isn't Just a Slogan. In reference to the UK Pakistani rape gangs, he states, quote, there's a lot of people that think that we just need a change in political party, or we just need a change in the people that lead the political party, and that we just vote for the right guy, we tick the right box, and the liberal democracy can just fix itself. But this is not the case. This is not a box tick away. This is not a vote away. That's actually not going to solve the problem. He goes on. Because it wasn't just the politicians, it wasn't just the judges, it wasn't just the police, it wasn't just the social workers, it was also the media. The media covered it up as well and are continuing to run a smear campaign, a cover campaign, a smoke and mirrors campaign to cover up their involvement in these crimes. So what do? What box do you tick to change almost every elected official? What box do you tick to change every single senior police officer? What box do you tick to change basically every single judge? What box do you tick to change the entire media establishment? And on top of that, get justice for everything that has happened. The enemy continued. In the same video reference, Blair Cottrell asked Tom, how do we summarize our enemy, Tom? Tom explains, in the context of the Pakistani gangs, quote, the enemy, clearly, is everyone who cares more about the feelings of immigrants than the white girls getting raped. He goes on, quote, and the real question is, who will judge the judges and who will police the police when they are all in on it? Quote here from Seneca is that, without an adversary, prowess shrivels. Who is the adversary? A quote here from George Lincoln Rockwell, without a deadly hate of that which threatens what we love, love is an empty catchword for hippies, queers, and cowards. The adversary is that which threatens what we love, its livelihood and its morality. Immigration, the demographic replacement, teaching of critical race theory, promoting DEI, fostering white guilt, villainizing colonialism, LGBT push, pornography and other degenerative media, usury, driving cost of living. This is all an attack on the livelihood and morality of those that we love. Case in point, with hindsight, Liberals on their own website boast of Bill Gates' endorsement regarding COVID response. It reads, as Bill Gates said in February 2022, quote, if every country does what Australia did, then you wouldn't be calling the next outbreak a pandemic. If you know about Gates and his crowd of globalist depopulation pushers and climate alarmists, only a group out of touch would hold up a Gates-type figure endorsement as a success. This is very much in line with the party who had a vaccine known to be unsafe rolled out and mandated in many industries with the help of the media, justice system, police, and turning the people against each other through Karen-like enforcers. This is in retrospect. Liberals have this on their website. With hindsight, what is the thought process? Showing allegiance to who exactly? The Australian people or their globalist WHO handlers? Their own federal platform. Best read without comment. Quote, being sufficiently responsive so that it can meet its proper obligations to its citizens. Quote, Liberals believe in freedom of choice and a fair go for all. Only in a society where individuals are free to pursue their individual goals can tyranny be avoided. Only in a society where opportunity, initiative, and personal responsibility are fostered can prosperity be attained. Freedom can only be meaningful if individuals have the opportunity to participate, to achieve, and to develop their talents. Respect for the individual implies tolerance of others. Quote, intrusive government has been demonstrated by history to be inefficient, cruel, and discouraging to human achievement. Liberalism is a philosophy of strategic but limited government. The role of government is to set the framework of laws and other rules within which individuals and families can freely make decisions about their own lives and pursue their goals with confidence. Quote, government can never duplicate the range of values and the life experiences of individual citizens and cannot therefore effectively substitute centralized for individual decision making. Quote, every act of government is to be judged by a simple test. Is it in the best interest of Australia and Australians? COVID vaccines and exemptions. This was updated in January of 2024. You can find it online. It states, background, COVID vaccines have been demonstrated to be safe and effective. There are very few situations where a vaccine is contraindicated, and as such, medical exemption is expected to be rarely required. Now, a contraindication is a condition, a situation or factor that serves as a reason not to take a certain medical treatment due to the harm it would cause the patient. So they still preface that vaccines are safe and effective in 2024 and that there is an expectation of exemptions being rarely required because, in their own words, there are very few situations where vaccines should not be taken due to the harm it would cause. I would say that sure stands to benefit the vaccine manufacturers. Quote, temporary exemptions. An exemption should not be given when an alternative COVID vaccine is available. With alternatives presumably also being safe and effective. Valid reasons for a temporary exemption include acute major medical condition, such as undergoing major surgery or hospital admission for a serious illness. So the determination would be them determining if that's major or serious. And again, any serious adverse event attributed to a previous dose. So I wonder if it would be in their interest to not attribute an adverse event to the dose so that it doesn't get contraindicated, I wonder. So, and any serious adverse event attributed to a previous dose of COVID-19 vaccine without another cause identified. There you go. And below, pregnancy is not a valid reason. Exemptions continued. So you can go on to read this yourself, but an adverse event is considered serious if it requires inpatient hospitalization. there were obvious concerns regarding hospitalisation for those that didn't get the vaccine. It was at some time you needed to be vaccinated to visit the hospital. So understandably, there is a risk of, if you're being admitted to hospital, that they would vaccinate you without your consent. That is certainly not out of the question. Best guess and the COVID report. I found an interesting reply in the Twitter comment which said, "A liar fears inquiry." So I'll just play this for you now.
Another really important insight from the report, one of the most important insights I think, is the lack of a shift through the course of the pandemic between a very understandable approach based on the precautionary principle at the outset. Lock everything down, take a precautionary approach while we start to understand the scale of the challenge. The lack of a shift from that position in the early months to a position that was more evidence-based, that balanced risks and benefits, took account of non-health impacts of decisions being imposed on the community by governments, by leaders, and did so in a proportionate way. That is a really compelling insight from this report. Relatedly, the inquiry report points to a lack of transparency around the rationale and the evidence behind decisions that were taken by governments that had such a profound impact on the lives of Australians and the freedom of Australians.
So a comment here: people still dying from what you lot said was, quote, safe and effective, isn't lack of transparency, it's criminal negligence at best. I'll play another one here.
Former Chief Health Officer Brett Sutton has admitted he failed to explain critical advice during the COVID pandemic. But the state government is standing by Victoria's response despite calls for a royal commission.
You think the response eroded trust? I think the pandemic eroded trust. I think the response probably played its role as well.
The former Chief Health Officer Brett Sutton candid on Victoria's approach.
Do you think you failed to explain sometimes? Of course I did. Of course I did.
A federal report revealed a lack of clear, honest communication was one of the most harmful aspects of the pandemic. But the expert at the time admits,
I think evidence changes all the time, and I think sometimes it just wasn't there. And so, of course, sometimes you're making a best guess.
So a reply here, question, why did they censor all the actual best guesses? So you can see they're just covering their butts here. Couple of funny images here. If you're watching, you can see this here. Caption, this is the person calling you a conspiracy theorist. It's a lady sitting at a computer in what appears to be some sort of safety bubble. And two young girls playing flute with a cutout out of their COVID mask. The monkeypox, Mpox, the WHO, this was back in August 2024, declared international emergency for monkeypox. There was a Twitter post that went up. It said, quick, share and bookmark this before they erase it. And it's a caption that shows, quote, monkeypox is a rare viral infection that does not spread easily between people. It is usually a mild, self-limiting illness. I did verify this on the Government of UK website. It was an article from September of 2018 that reads exactly that from a Dr. Michael Jacobs. Monkeypox, in most cases, a mild condition which will resolve itself on its own and have no long-term effects on a person's health. Most people will recover within several weeks. It is a rare disease, and it goes on to say it does not spread easily between people, and the risk of transmission to the wider public is very low. So it just goes to show, if they're declaring it an international emergency, again, you need to qualify the information you're consuming and who stands to benefit. So I won't go into too much detail here, but there is a page on the Australian Government Health website regarding Mpox vaccination. They've got one of the manufacturers here is the quote, is the preferred vaccine for use in Australia based on its safety profile. I found that interesting because they never really cared about the safety profiles, did they? Where the above mentioned is not suitable or not available, there is another that may be considered for healthy, non-pregnant adults. So there's an alternative that may be considered. I assume this is one with a lower safety profile, I guess in their own words. But we know that may consider will turn into mandate or else at the command of the WHO, as we have signed up to the pandemic treaty, which you can read into yourself. Quote, as with any vaccine, vaccination with these two manufacturers should only take place after a person and their healthcare professional have assessed the possible risks and benefits of receiving the vaccine, and the person has provided informed consent. I'll say neither of which were present during COVID, and they're clearly covering their butts with this, what I assume last-minute inclusion. If one of the manufacturers is not suitable, it is not suitable for the severely immunocompromised people, pregnant or breastfeeding people, people with cardiac risk factors, infants below 12 months of age. I'll say, if the goal is vaccination, does it really matter who is not suitable? As it was clear, the goal for COVID was vaccination. More recent developments, Bill Gates-backed genetically modified mosquito. A news article here reads, mosquito-borne diseases like dengue fever cause hundreds of thousands of deaths every year, and a new venture wants to change that by introducing genetically modified mosquitoes right here in Australia. So hundreds of thousands of deaths every year over the whole world, I assume, and predominantly in Africa, a disease-ridden country. Why leave this information out? To push bias and a narrative that we need it here in Australia? This is fear-mongering. Quote, these invasive insects have already spread through northern and central Queensland and can transmit dengue, which can be life-threatening in severe cases. So they're impressing upon us the need to act, as it is life or death. I wonder, did they forget about influenza during COVID? Influenza that kills hundreds of thousands per year. Questions to think about. What was the annual influenza death toll through 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024? Then compare that to the historical baseline. What was the average age of death for COVID? The infection, not the vaccine. If the average age of death for COVID infection was greater than normal life expectancy, does that not point to the possibility, or more so reality, that the infection is not as deadly as first believed and the measures enforced were unsuitable at the very least? Measures including vaccinating young children and military-age males. What is the total vaccine-related deaths? This number, as well as COVID deaths, would have needed to be collected honestly, which they weren't. If the masses are told by Channel 7, Channel 9 or the ABC or SBS that the vaccine itself killed multiples of times more than the infection, they face the largest scale of cognitive dissonance in our living memory, putting the JFK assassination, 9/11 and World War II propaganda to shame. I.e., they would think, what else could the government be lying about? Thus, the true numbers for vaccine deaths are very unlikely to come out while the established uni party is in power. So are we going to hold those responsible to account? It is one thing to have lost your job and living security. It is an entirely different reality to have a loved one taken from you. What measures are appropriate for those who knowingly, strategically, deceitfully facilitated this in our land, Australia? Deportation, imprisonment, slave manual labour, or execution? Finally, think why it would be the case that any of the information is kept from the public. Finding who was behind this would shine light on plans and active execution of a global government through the bodies like the WHO, WEF, and the UN. There could be a potential depopulation plan in conjunction with the emergence of artificial intelligence. Summary. Again, qualify the information you are consuming, who stands to benefit, and why are you being told what you are being told. Find where their allegiance lies. This goes for MPs at all levels, political commentators, public speakers, so-called activists or advocates, media personalities, and your own circle of friends and family. Unite around nationalism, that being what interests you, your family, your people, not what benefits immigrants and global bodies. Do not forget those that betrayed you and your people. Shine light on them, bring them into the light, demand justice, bring it to them. Quote, no friend ever served me, nor enemy ever wronged me, who I have not repaid in full. For if the top were really the all-powerful, confident, masterly being he pretends to be, he wouldn't need to go to such outrageous lengths to ensure the bottom's recognition of his power. When you tear out a man's tongue, you are not proving him a liar. You are only telling the world that you fear what he might say. Now that is all. Thanks for watching. Share if you found insightful. Comment your thoughts, criticisms, or any video topic suggestions. And you have a good one.